deal with this passage of scripture. I want to tag this one, living in the shadows. Living in the shadows. What I just read for you, brothers and sisters, is an excerpt of the life of both Caleb and Joshua. And one has found himself living in the spotlight of the other. When I read this passage, I have to say in the words, though she was talking about someone else, I have to say in the words of Jennifer Hudson, I don't like living in the spotlight of somebody else. I know that either went over your head or you too holy to get with me on that. So that causes me to ask you a question this morning. I thought I could take on off into the text, but I have to ask you a question this morning. What is that question, Pastor? How do you handle the success of other people? Okay. Since nobody said anything on that, how do you handle, brothers and sisters, or rather, how do you respond to someone else's victories and breakthroughs? While you are going through what you're going through, and somebody else is experiencing a victory and a breakthrough, how do you handle that? I can't hear nobody but somebody back here, which tells me that you've got your Sunday morning facade on, and that tells me that because of that, your words are, oh, brother pastor, I rejoice with them because the word of God says that we should rejoice with those who rejoice. Well, I got news for you. It's not always easy to rejoice in folk who are experiencing what looks like victory while you've prayed and seem like God didn't hear your prayer. You see folk who don't even pronounce the word God seem like they're getting blessed left and right. Every year I pay taxes back and I hear other folk getting big money in taxes. So the word is, brother pastor, how do you rejoice? How do you handle the victories of other folk? I see folk who do wrong, and I know they're doing wrong, and they openly do wrong, and nobody ever says a word about them. And from the day I came here and bought my house, my name has been, come on, talk to me. Come on, talk to me in here. And so how do you rejoice and how do you respond when it seems like other folk are being blessed? How do you respond when others are getting promotions and it seems as if your life is stagnated and stationary? You've been on a job for 20 years and you've been doing the same thing, but everybody else has passed you up and has gone on. How do you respond to that? And you got to be careful, brothers and sisters, because you witness over and over other folks ascending while it seems like you just stay in the same place. You've gone, others have gone and bought homes and made their way out. And you've messed around and got hooked up with those folk talking about affordable housing, and you discovered that affordable housing was you got to rent from them for 15 years. Y'all ain't gonna like me in here. That's not affordable housing. Say what you want to now. I know this is gonna get twisted. But think about it, y'all. If it was affordable housing and it take you 15 years to buy a house, I ain't mad at nobody, but why do you have to rent if you could be? You ain't got to have no degree in economics to figure that out. So how do you handle it when you are over here and other folk are just going on? That's kind of the way it is in this morning's text. Joshua 14 chapters, he's in the spotlight. From the time Moses died and Moses passed on the mantle, Joshua has been escalating. He has been going up. His career has just been skyrocketing. Seem like everything that goes on, everybody, he's got all of the attention. He's got all of the spotlight. Everybody is talking about Joshua and all that Joshua is, all that he has, all that he's doing, because he's going to lead us into the promised land. But when you look at it, here it is, 14 chapters from chapter 1. You can look at chapter 1. His name is in the spotlight. And then right here in chapter 14, his name is in the spotlight. Or rather 13 chapters. Not until we get to chapter 14, there's a fella now by the name of Caleb. And it appears as though Caleb is now in the spotlight of Joshua, and Joshua's spotlight is shining, casting a shadow, and Caleb finds himself now living in the shadow of Joshua's spotlight. You know, y'all ain't talking to me in here, but somebody in here, you have lived in the shadow of your big brother. Your mama and your daddy wanted you to make the grades that your big brother made, and you found yourself living in his, and that's what, check the record out, check the record out. It was in Numbers chapter 13 where Moses sent Joshua and Caleb. In fact, he sent 12 spies over to search out the land of Canaan, of Jericho. And in doing so, 10 came back and said it couldn't be done. But Joshua and Caleb said, let us go up. In fact, the 10 said, y'all, no, we can't go over there. There's some big folk over there. Kind of like when we built this property, when we secured the block here, and we began to build, others said, no, we can't do that. Project 2000 was a hoax anyway. I was never on board anyhow. We can't. I wish y'all talked to me in here. But God blessed that thing anyhow. And this is what took place. And while they were all saying we can't do it, and that 10 that went over there said it's some big, listen to what they said, y'all. It's some big people over there. So big until they look like giants and we look like grasshoppers. Now, I'm going to give some descriptive language on how I look, but you ain't going to never hear me talk myself down. If I be a grasshopper, I'm going to be a big grasshopper. If I be a grasshopper, I'm going to be the one that's going to be able to hop higher than the rest of the grasshopper. Whatever you do, don't talk yourself down. Deliver me from the one that's always running their spouse down, running their children down. If you can't talk them up, then don't expect nobody else. But Joshua and Caleb, the two together stood up and said to Moses, let us go up at once, for we are well able. And in fact, if you check the record, it was really Caleb who spoke up. But when you look at the text, y'all, seemed like Caleb should have been the one in the spotlight. Seemed like he should have been the one elevated. And I'm talking to somebody in here now on your job. You've watched folk get elevated and they ain't bit more qualified for the job, but because their uncle, they've got connection with somebody, they go on, and the truth of the matter, you're doing the job. Here it is. Here's the text. Here's the text. Conversation goes on now. Caleb has been quiet. He's been in the background. Joshua has stepped up so Caleb could step back. But I have no problem with that, because when John the Baptist was baptizing, and Jesus came along, John the Baptist said, you got to understand, the disciples had stopped following John and started following Jesus. And they thought John was going to cop an attitude, but John said, no, I must decrease that he may increase. And I'm working my way to the text here, brothers and sisters. And so here now, what God allows us to notice, that Caleb, he did not backstab, he did not talk about, he did not ridicule, he just politely stepped back so Joshua could step up. And that's why I wanted to say something this morning, because all of these fellas here are well qualified to do what Joshua is doing. But the difference is they politely stepped back so Joshua could step up. Now you missing me, because everybody can't do that. I've got the record to show there are some folk, if I can't be the star, I'm going to go and start my own. If I can't be in the spotlight, I know preachers who the church no longer wanted them, so they went across town and started Greater Union Baptist, New Union Baptist, Holy Union Baptist. Talk to me, y'all. I know some folk that because things didn't go their way in church, they tucked tail and went somewhere else. You too, you know? That's all I'm trying to get us to understand. So how do you handle it when it appears that God looks over you to put someone else? Could it be that God says, I'm reading into the text, that God says to Caleb, I want to see how you can handle a little bit before I can bless you with a lot. You know, power kills some folk. They can't handle it, and when they get a little power, a little authority, no longer can they don't even talk to you anymore. And so when I look into the text, maybe God was working with Caleb because he knew something Caleb didn't know. So could it be that God is working in your situation because he knows something you don't know? And what I've discovered, y'all, he knows what's best for me. So what appears to be a loss, God would take it. But the key is, how do you handle what appears to be a loss? Because look at it, y'all. At least, seemed like to me, at least Joshua could have made Caleb assistant. Nowhere in the text do you see where Caleb was assistant to Joshua. He could have made him his right hand man, but he does not do that. So Caleb now stands here face to face with Joshua, and he shares with him word for word conversation. And in this conversation, he's saying, at least give me this mountain. That's what he's asking, and that's the text. And so when I ask this question, first question, how do you handle another person's successes? But then the second question is, how do you honor God when you're living in the shadows? I see about three things here, and we'll go down from this place. How do you honor God when you find yourself living in the shadows? First thing, brothers and sisters, when I look at this text, you got to first of all stand by your commitment to God. While you're taking care of that loved one, don't get frustrated. Don't throw in the towel. Don't get upset. Remember, stand by your commitment to God. Now, many of us want to go immediately to our commitment to each other. But if you remember your commitment to God, you don't have to even think about the commitment. My commitment to God is what keeps me rooted and grounded. Though the storms keep on raging in my life, my soul is anchored. Is it any more anchored, folk? Come what may. Listen, y'all, I know you don't like every decision I make, but because you are rooted, not committed to me, but you're committed to God, and because you're committed to God, your theme song has become just like my theme song. What is it, Pastor? Talk to me in here. I shall not be moved. That's what it is. What are you saying, Pastor? When you look at verse 8, as simple as it is, he says, Caleb says to Joshua, nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me came back, and there was something about your charisma. You melted the hearts of the people. But look at the B clause there. He said, I followed Jesus. I followed God. I followed God wholly. And in the original Hebrew text, when you look at that, following God wholly, it's a picture of closing the gap of the distance between you and God while you're chasing him. And what Caleb is saying here is every day I take my eye off of what other folk are doing and put my eye on closing that gap between me and God, because wholly I've been trying to catch. I've been trying to catch God. I know you want God to catch you. That ain't no problem, but can you catch? Can you catch him? Following him 2 times, he says, following God, following him wholly. That's not holy, but he says wholly, meaning I ain't been half-stepping, hidden and missing, every now and then shucking and jiving. He says, I ain't playing. I've been serious about this thing. And some of you are the same way. You've been serious about it, but you still come up sick. You've been serious about it. You still come up broke. You've been serious about it and you still have problems. And I just want you to understand this morning by the way of the text, stand by your commitment to God. No, it's not happening the way I want it to happen. But God, I'm committed to you. And I'm going to keep on going back. It's not happening as fast as I want it to happen. But God, because I'm committed to you, it's not happening the way I want it to happen, but because, God, I'm committed to you. It's not happening when I want it to happen, but God, I'm committed to you. Which means, brothers and sisters, you got to be committed unconditionally. Because with us, I'm committed to you as long as you remember me the 3rd Sunday in September. I'm committed to you as long as you remember me Christmas. I'm committed to you as long as you remember me December 31st. That's the way some of us operate. And when you check out the Word of God, ain't no flunkies in God's program, and this is what we have to understand. Your commitment is not much if you are only committed to someone based on what they are doing for you. That's why I get happy when I even think about the words, because of who you are, I give you glory. It's not, the song does not say, God, because you gave me this car, because you gave me this house, I give you glory. No, it doesn't say that. That's unconditional. It says, because of who you are, I give you glory. You've got to be committed to God, but not brothers and sisters, not committed, not just committed unconditionally, but you got to be also committed in spite of the people. He says, I was 40 years old when Moses sent us over there. 45 years have passed now. I'm 85 years old. And I've watched you get blessing after blessing. But I'm still here. Yeah. He says, y'all, I was 40 years old. 45 years have passed. Watch it now. Which means that he's not there because of Aunt May and them. Cousin Betsy. Uncle Joe. What do you mean, Pastor? 45 years, all of that generation that came out of Egypt is dead. And really, y'all, if I took an ad hoc survey in here, I think I'll do that because you ain't talking to me. Quickly, stand on your feet if you've been on here over 40 years. Now look at the number of folk who are seated. See, I wasn't talking about your age. I'm talking about being at Union Baptist Church. Now sit down. Now those who were left seated, you stand up. See, the first group that stood up, that was the group that came out of Egypt. This group here is the group that's going over into Jericho. You can sit down. I'm making a point here. So Caleb now stands and says, I was with both groups. And it's more of them that came out. 600,000 came out of Egypt. More of them have died on. But he says, I'm still here. And so we've got to understand that come what may, we've buried Mama, we've buried Pawpaw, we've buried some other folk, but you've got to stay there and be committed come what may. Ain't about coming, well, you know, we used to carry water in a bucket too. Come on, talk to me in here. It's committed to God. And this is what Caleb tells us, that you got to stand by your commitment to God if you're going to handle other folks' successes. If you're going to honor God while walking in the shadows, you've got to stay committed to God. Okay, secondly, that didn't really excite you much, so I'll move on. Secondly, you got to strengthen your confidence in God. Yeah. This 85-year-old man, watch the text. He says, I was 40 years old when I went over there, and I came back and said, let us go up at once. 45 years have passed. I've seen many folk die, come and go, and I'm still here. He says, Joshua, I'm 85 years old. Watch the text. He says, and I'm just as strong now as I was then. Rewind, play. For most of us, we talk about, well, I can't do this. And I realize age sets in, but we've got to have the attitude of the confidence. No, I may not be able to do what I used to do. Oh, I used to sing in the choir. I used to have the wind, the breath to sing like back then, but I can't now. But that's not an excuse to not come to church. Because I've been here 16 years now, and I still run into folk in the store who want to tell me about they've got membership at Union. And so your confidence, brothers and sisters, here it is, your confidence, why did he have so much confidence? He reminded himself of the promise of God. Because he says, Moses told me. Moses said, wherever your feet shall trod. And I'm just waiting on that promise, which means, y'all, that we've got to go to bed talking about the promise. We got to wake up talking about the promise every day, every week, every month. And many of us fall by the wayside because we don't know the promises of God. And we don't position ourselves where somebody can tell us about the promises of God. Now, we know about Cookie and Lucius. Talk to me. We can't wait for Power and Shy to come back on. We go to work out. We know about the fit clubs, but we worry. We have no confidence because we don't know about the promises of God. Okay, so when you look at the text, how was he confident? Because he was reminded of God's faithfulness. And over what he did, he looked back and said, if God could do it then God can do it now. I want to yank this thing, but since this first Sunday and it's springtime and I'm the only one sweating in here, I'm going to give you this last point and sit down. He remembers the promise. He recognizes God's faithfulness. And brothers and sisters, you can walk with confidence. When I put on a white shirt and a black suit, you better look out. Because I feel like I can walk on water. Now, different folk do different things. Maybe 4-inch heels get you. I don't know. But give me a white shirt, Deke, and a black suit. City Hall better look out. Because you know he got something to say. Then, which it's confidence. And so you've got to ask yourself, what triggers your confidence? What makes you feel good? What makes you step out? And he thought about the faithfulness. He recognized the faithfulness of God. What was that, Pastor? God told me that wherever my feet shall trod. No, I'm not you, Joshua. I'm not in the leadership seat. But I know the promise of God said that me too. Said that wherever, it didn't say, Joshua, wherever your feet trod, that you're going to have the inheritance, the blessing. It said wherever our feet shall trod, which means, y'all, that we are blessed. A blessed people, and that's the promise of God, and that's the confidence in knowing I may be down right now. I may be riding in the second chariot. I may be looked over, have had to set back in the shadows of somebody else's spotlight, but I've got a promise down in my soul. And that is what gives me confidence. So you've got to strengthen your confidence. Strengthen your confidence. Deliver me from a bunch of woe is me folk. You don't want, if you've been hanging around sad folk, your baby is sick and you got sad, pitiful folk coming around, you need to start looking out the window and lock the door when you see them coming. Talk to me in here. And the unfortunate thing is the sad, pitiful folk don't know what to say, don't know when to say it. But here you have this 85-year-old man talking with confidence because he knew what God had already done. So stand by your commitment to God and strengthen your confidence in God. But then lastly, stay true to your calling for God. Now, if you don't know what your calling is, I can't help you there. You gotta find your purpose, but you've got to stay true to what God has called you to do. Look at the text. He says, all I don't want to be your second in charge. He says, I don't want to be assistant. He says, just give me this mountain. if you give me what's due to me, it'll be all right with me. I don't want half of the children of Israel to come with me. He said, I just want to be able to look at this mountain as an inheritance. And if I hear it come from your voice that this mountain belongs to me, he says, I'll be all right. I'll be able to handle it. This is basically what he says. And so the message here, brothers and sisters, is that while things are happening in our lives and seem like victory after victory is passing over you and passing over me, you've got to be able to honor God by knowing that mine is coming. You've got to be able to have the attitude, I may not get up out of this situation today, but it's coming. You've got to have the strength and the encouragement to understand that I'm going to be true to my God, true because God, you've been true to me. Huh? Can I get a witness in here? You don't know what God has in store. While you're trying to get this, God will give you this. I'm going to my seat now, but my longtime friend, Carlos Kelly, who is the son of my father in the ministry, Don Kelly, he tells a story about his baby boy being in college. And his baby boy, he was a freshman, Pastor Richie, in college, and he had gone and he had applied for a position with this prestigious organization in college. Down there at Georgia University, he applied and he was anxiously awaiting, and he called his dad up and said, Daddy, I applied for this position. And his daddy said, but boy, I didn't send you to school for a bunch of positions. He said, I sent you to school to get an education. He said, I know that, Daddy, my grades are good, but I've applied for this position with this organization, and I'm hoping that I get it. He said that he called him back and said, Daddy, I didn't get the position. And he went on, said time passed, and the next year he applied for another position. Said he called his daddy up and he said, Daddy, guess what? He said, what, son? He said, I got the position. He said, congratulations. He said, no, Dad, you don't understand. I got the position. He said, son, I said, congratulations. He said, no, Dad, I got the position. He said, son, I didn't send you to school for positions. I sent you to school to get an education. Dad, my grades are good, but I got the position. He said, what's the position? He said, you remember last year when I went and I applied for that organization and I got turned down. He said, well, the position I got this year, everybody in the organization got to answer to me now. And what I'm trying to get us to see in here this morning is sometime your way is not the same as God's way. And sometime when you're trying for this, God has that waiting for you. And I just wonder this morning, is it anybody in here that's willing to hold on and wait on to pass this up? Is it anybody in here, you've been struggling while folk have been getting raises on the job, and folk have been getting new homes and new cars, and you've been trying to make ends meet? And God wants me to tell somebody in here that if you hold on and if you hold out, then he's got a blessing around the corner for you. And you know, y'all, the blocks in Springfield are this long, but the blocks in Chicago is this long. And I just found out that for some of us, God has a Chicago block blessing, and for some, he has a Springfield block blessing. And you get your blessing right now and sooner than at once, but every now and then You got to walk that long mile stretch, and it takes a little bit longer. And all I'm trying to tell you, if you wait on him and be of good courage, somebody knows he'll give you this mountain. Look at the words, y'all. Caleb, he didn't get mad. He didn't get upset, but he stood there and humbly said, Joshua, we've been walking together and we've been friends for a long time, and all I want, I ain't gonna fight you because you're in charge, and if I can't help you, I will not hurt you. So he stood there and said, give me this mountain. I didn't read verse 13 for you, but verse 13 said that Joshua gave it to him as an inheritance. Have I got a witness? And I'm just so glad, so happy that when God gives you a trust, an inheritance, let me break it down to you. What is an inheritance? An inheritance means, y'all, that you and I were in the will of God. And I found out that what I wrote this morning in the pastoral comments, I found out that the safest place is in the will of God. Is it anybody in here who knows you're in the will of God? You ought to help me close this thing. Help me celebrate the victory that God woke you up this morning. The victory that he started you on your way. Y'all, we don't deserve it, but since he woke me up and since he started me on my way, I'm gonna just praise him, because when praises are going up, blessings will come down. I heard songwriters say, every time I turn around, he keeps on blessing me. And I found out, y'all, I'm just a spinning top for the Lord. I want to be blessed. Well, if you want to be blessed, Mac, you got to turn around.